The following is brought to you by the Starfleet Podcast Network, SPN, The Spin. Because it's No Shave November, I don't look like Siska right now, letting the beard grow out. And I see that look you're giving me. I saw that. Because I see you right there on the screen. Oh my God, really?
Red alert.
Hi, it's Big J, and in just a moment, I will be presenting you with The Needs of the One, a Star Trek fan film from Avalon Universe. Afterwards, please join our Critical-not-Cynical review where we discuss this Star Trek fan film with writer and director Joshua Irwin. Without further ado, here's the fan film titled The Needs of the One.
So I can help you with to print.
Curiosity. The movements in your current workout, they are fast, violent. It contradicts the movements taught in the Kung Fu class this week.
Well, Terran martial arts are extremely diverse. Some are more expressive, as the word art would imply, whereas others are more direct.
Which do you prefer?
I found that there is great value in studying many different approaches, because not one way works 100% of the time.
Logical.
That, and it comes down to instinct, like finding out what works best for you, developing your own game, so to speak.
And yet, choosing the right approach would seem to be best decided through simple physics and anatomy. For example, in a confrontation between the two of us, my superior Vulcan strength should give me a definite advantage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, strength isn't everything.
Please demonstrate. As I said, it's a simple matter of physics and anatomy.
You ever thought about working in security?
As Vulcans are pacifists, I prefer a vocation in the healing arts.
But you study the fighting arts.
As the Terran expression states, it is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
And as a Vulcan might say, that is logical.
Captain's Log, Stardate 6988.4. After completing our successful rescue mission, the USS Excalibur is in the race against the clock, both to investigate the gravitational anomaly in the Cavus Alpha sector and escape Sheliak space. To that end, we will soon traverse through the most intense concentration of hyperonic radiation clouds in the Delure Belt. Our shields should protect the crew, but it will require a massive transfer of power from the warp engines. It's also a chance for my new first officer to get some valuable command experience. I have faith in her, and this is a perfect opportunity for her to find that faith for herself.
Rerouting power to atmospheric.
Good evening, Commander Allenby. We have brought the ship to a full stop and are ready to enter the radiation field at your command.
Gravity plating damage on Deck 5, aft, Section B.
Bridge, try it now. Reading at 12%. drop in antimatter intake valve 3.
Bridge to engineering. What's the good word?
I've transferred the primary plaza flow to the shield grid and the deflector beam. It should be enough to counter the radiation, but we can't overload the emitters like this for too long before we burn them out. We'll need to drop our shields as soon as we're clear of the radiation. Best case scenario, we'll only be looking at minor repairs.
Thank you, Ayoka. Bridge out.
Are you okay, Commander? You appear nervous.
I mean, I've only been dreading this moment since I came on board 2 days ago. My first watch on the bridge, and we're about to take the ship straight through the heart of a supernova. Commodore Chakande is playing another one of his jokes on me.
That would be Chakande for you. You know, he likes to train his newbies by giving them very difficult tasks.
Well, it's a 2-for-1 special then, I guess.
You know, it's all in your head, right?
Is it?
You have watched me do this job your whole life. You have the Starfleet IQ, you have the experience, and you have the commission to know that you're ready.
But it doesn't mean that I am ready. If I sit in that chair, then it makes all of this real.
Do you trust Commodore Chakande?
Of course, he's a war hero.
You should trust that he trusts you. And you know that I trust you.
How can I possibly sit in that chair? It's yours, not mine.
Well, it's time it became your chair. I'll always be with you, no matter what station you sit in.
I love you.
Red line on ventral conduit number 2. Emergency evacuation protocols in place for main deflector section.
Attention all hands. This is Commander Allenby. If you'll turn your attention to your screen, you will note our current flight path. We will be passing through the most dense portion of the Delure radiation field, a phenomenon created in the aftermath of a massive supernova. While we pass through, main power will be diverted to the shields. Warp travel will also not be possible at this time due to the phenomenon created by the intense electromagnetic field. As a result, we'll be going to gray mode GQ3 to conserve power. Please limit all non-essential power usage until further notice. Bridge out.
All decks acknowledging GQ3, Commander.
Commander Shruv, raise shields and set the intensity for 110% of nominal output.
110% of nominal output.
Set a course directly through the supernova remnant to a position proximate of the Cavus Alpha sector. Maximum impulse velocity.
Course and speed are set.
Engage.
Battery power down to 53%.
Repair update. Containment reestablished on deck 2.
Sick bay to bridge.
Go ahead.
This is Dr. Ava. Security alert urgent. Something is wrong with Nurse T'Pren. She attacked Dr. Estevez with a knife.
What?
Security acknowledged. Commander Williams, I'm on my way.
Nurse T'Pren? That can't be right.
Never underestimate the treachery of Vulcans.
Well, this is off to a great start. I wonder what's next.
Warning, hyperonic radiation levels rising. Lethal exposure levels. Deflector shield output exceeding maximum recommended intensity. General quarters now in effect.
Let's be careful with the plasma flow. We don't want to burn out the emitters.
Captain to security.
Security, Commander Williams.
I need sick bay secured and on alert as soon as possible.
Aye, sir. Dr. Ava, what happened?
Well, I thought something was off, and then she just started tearing the place apart. And she came at Dr. Estevez with a knife. And she cut her arm.
We're talking about Nurse T'Pren here.
We've never seen her like this. It's like she just snapped.
Okay, well, we don't want to alarm or spook her. We definitely don't want to hurt her if we don't have to. So I'm going to go in there calmly. I'm going to try and talk to her. And if I need you, I will call for you. Until then, stay on alert. T'Pren, everything okay in here?
I'm just cleaning up this mess.
I mean, isn't it illogical to make a mess in the first place?
Logic. Logic is a joke told by a culture with no sense of humor. The irony is that repressing our emotion is motivated by fear. Fear of our passions, fear of ourselves. And logic fuels our arrogance. That's why I joined the Med Exchange program. Because I couldn't stand it anymore.
Why open up about this now?
Because in my arrogance, I thought this condition would never happen to me. That I could repress it like everything else.
Repress? Repress what exactly?
It's called Hanfar.
Blood... fire?
Close enough. We don't discuss it with outsiders. Of course we don't. It would destroy our facade of logic and control. Hanfar is total loss of control.
So is this an illness? Are you ill?
Illness? No. It's a part of Vulcan biology, our drive to mate.
Ah.
We mate or we die.
I can see how that could be a problem.
A problem we typically solve in the safety of our home world, like this ship's previous CMO chose to.
Oh, so then we just need to get you home then?
I came here to escape what this means for me.
Well, I mean, it appears to have caught up with you, and I don't know how to help you.
I've always found you to be a man of great compassion.
That's why I carry a phaser.
I greatly admired your efforts recently, evacuating those injured colonists.
Just do my job.
And now you wish to help me. Admirable. Passion is so admirable.
Hold on. Listen, I don't want there to be any misunderstandings between us. Like, you are so beautiful. There's no way I could take advantage of you in this situation. You know, my plan usually have to consent to something like this.
Do you consent to Kunut Khalifi?
Yeah.
I'm getting reports about a lot of loud noises coming from in there. What's going on?
I was ordered by Commander Williams to stand guard. He's been trying to calm Nurse T'Pren down for over half an hour.
Well, whatever he's doing obviously isn't working. We need sickbay up and running. I'm going in. Nurse T'Pren, is everything okay?
Indeed.
Oh.
What happened to you?
Well, I took Vulcan in high school and passed with a D, and I think I just got married.
Commander, we are
clear of the stellar remnant and the Tau Cygnus star system.
Sickbay reports no radiation casualties.
Bridge to engineering.
Engineering, Ioka here.
I need warp 8 for as long as you can hold it.
I can give you warp 8.2 for just under 48 hours.
Estimated time to the Cavus Alpha sector at warp 8.2?
47 hours, 12 minutes will take us to the L1 Lagrange point of the 4th planet.
Cutting it right to the edge. Warp 8.2 it is then.
Commander, there's a Vulcan ship approaching on an intercept course. Bashar class.
That's one of their military vessels.
They're hailing us.
On screen.
Greetings, Starship Excalibur. To whom am I speaking?
Commander Allenby, First Officer.
I've come for T'Pren. If you can transport her to my ship as soon as possible, we will, as you humans say, be on our way.
I don't understand. Nurse T'Pren is a valued member of our medical staff, and we are on an urgent mission for Starfleet. I can't exactly spare her for a vacation at the moment.
I think you misunderstand me. T'Pren is my wife, and the property of my family. She will be returning to Vulcan with me, permanently.
Excuse me? No one is anyone else's property.
Perhaps in your culture, this is the Vulcan way. It's a better way. Logical.
I need to at least speak with her first. I can't just release her if she isn't willing to go with you.
I'm afraid you don't have a choice.
Commander, they're locking particle weapons on us.
Shields up! Arm phasers!
Commander, Starfleet Command has been informed of the situation and has ordered your cooperation. I don't think it would be wise for this to become an interstellar incident.
Receiving confirmation on those orders, Commander.
If you'd be willing to beam aboard, we can discuss this further and avoid an incident. Commander Sherv, you have the con.
Thermal regeneration is now complete. How do you feel?
Oh, much better. And I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thank you for helping me.
Yeah.
Nurse T'Pren, please report to Briefing Room 1.
Svan is a powerful Vulcan politician, and he is my husband.
Husband?
Vulcans attempt to bring logic to the challenges of our mating biology through what you would call a dowry, or an arranged marriage. I was betrothed to Svan by my parents when I was 7 years old.
Wow.
I joined the EXO Medical Exchange Program to escape that arrangement. On Vulcan, we have a word for the type of politician that he is, but it would be unbecoming of a Starfleet officer to repeat such a word.
Well, I'm not sure how asylum would work here. The Federation Council has ordered us to turn you over to him.
There is a Vulcan ritual that would release me from the marriage, but I would need Commander Williams' assistance and use of the ship's gymnasium.
I will discuss it with him and keep you updated. Dismissed.
Commander, I've been informed of and accepted the challenge issued by your Commander Williams for a battle to the death.
What?
So I guess you're gonna have to tell the captain about this, huh?
Good morning, Commander. How was your first night?
Pretty uneventful, sir. Commander Williams is dead, and we had an interstellar incident with the Vulcans.
Well, just between me and you, I can't even take T'Pren in sparring. I'm not for sure what kind of chance I have this guy.
Didn't you kill a bunch of Klingons on an away mission a couple years ago?
The more I think about this situation, the more it starts to make sense. I mean, Svan would have known that T'Pren was about to enter the Ponfar, and that she would be more than willing to go with him due to being compromised by it.
Ponfar?
Oh, it's like being in heat.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. You know, when she said ritual, I thought she meant lighting some candles, some smoke and chanting, doing some Vulcan yoga.
Ooh. Yeah. Vulcan yoga is awesome.
I do not choose him as my champion. I will fight for my own freedom.
I see no logic in killing my own mate.
Vulcan tradition gives me this right. Logic be damned, I'm not going with you. You will have to kill me according to our laws and tradition, or I will kill you.
Very well.
Kick his ass.
Dunamtul Tanashvi, Dunamtul Nokabai.
Simple matter of physics and anatomy.
First Officer's Log, Supplemental. The Vulcan ship has set course back to Federation space, and with the excitement of a Vulcan marriage ritual behind us, the Excalibur is on course to resume its mission. Hopefully, with the night shift almost over, it will be a quiet morning.
Wow, nice uniform.
Thank you. Commander Allenby has sponsored my enlistment into Starfleet.
Oh, so no more civilian...
Med exchange program? No, I'm here to stay.
That's excellent. That's great news.
May I assist you, Commander?
Oh, well, I don't know.
I'm grateful for your assistance.
About that, I was wondering if there's anything here for us.
Perhaps. However, I think without the pressure of previous events, it might be prudent to take a step back and approach the situation with caution.
So in other words, you're not sure if you want to get into a committed relationship after just getting out of an arranged marriage.
Indeed.
Well, I get it. Honestly, I'm just happy to help and compassion and whatnot.
Perhaps a human ritual would be acceptable? A shared meal as colleagues?
Lunch as friends? That sounds perfect.
Welcome back. This is our Critical-not-Cynical review. I am Big J here with Nico and Vance. We've got a special guest with us, Joshua Irwin, who is the writer and director of the film you just watched or listened to, The Needs of the One. So that was a spectacular film.
Sure was.
It was. The production value of it looked very good. Everything was just, it was nice. It was really nice. Now, I want to ask you, how did you pull that off?
Oh, gosh. Boy, is that a story.
That's what we're here for.
This was, here's the thing. It was really simultaneously one of the lowest and highest points of Avalon there was. There's an inspirational speech that I listen to a lot from a guy named Tony Gaskins, rapper, musician. And he talks about greatness and what greatness is. And he says that people don't really understand what greatness is. They think that it's fame. They think that it's, shine and all this great stuff. But he said it's more about sacrifice. It's more about hard work. And one part that he says that I think is the most important, he says it's your sweetest dream and your darkest nightmare at the same time. And that's really sometimes what film is. And 2021 and 2022 were really difficult years for Avalon because there was so much fallout from the pandemic. I'd lost my job, I'd lost my business, I was barely getting by financially, and I had also, in the middle of it, decided that the whole thing was just headed in the wrong direction, and I needed to find a new direction for the entire fan film series. And in trying to figure out the new direction, there were some missteps and there was some ugly drama that happened early in 2022. And I had to stop and I had to reevaluate from the beginning my approach to making these fan films. And I did that, and Tyler Donovan supported me. And we basically started over. Needs of the One is a reset. It's hitting the reset button. It's an entirely new cast, with the exception of Warren Hawk, who plays Commodore Jaconde. And so Alexandra Rexford, who took up the mantle of playing Commander Michaela Allenby, we're establishing her in that role. And that's why you kind of have this little graphic at the beginning that shows who she is. And then, of course, we're equating her with her father, which is Admiral Michael Allenby, played by Dan Reynolds. And so we wanted to set a new tone for the whole thing. The idea really came from one scene, that scene where she basically Ponfar's the security officer was really the genesis of the entire film. Like, I thought of that.
I'm glad you used that as a verb. You got Ponfar.
Yeah. It's like, what wouldn't it be neat if you saw like this woman who is the aggressor and she's going through Ponfar and she's like so much stronger than a dude and she just manhandles him, and like he's kind of like, well, you know, we're in my culture, you have to consent to this. And she's like, well, do you consent? He's like, yeah, you know, of course I do. Like, what are you talking about? And then I thought it would be funny to see the aftermath of that, where she's like walking out and she's all, you know, she's back to where she needs to be. She's logical and stuff again. And then he's like walking out. And I think in the script I wrote that he looked like he'd been mugged by Nausicaans or something like that.
He had a black eye too.
Yeah. And so that scene was where the whole thing came from. And that scene was going to be part of another film, and it just never happened. And I thought, wouldn't it be funny just to take that idea and play it out a little more? And, I watched a lot of Vulcan themed episodes in the original show. And the thing that really stood out to me is the attitude that Vulcans seem to have towards women in their culture, where in Amok Time, they talk about T'Pring as being a possession, like whoever wins this fight owns her. And I thought, okay, that's pretty crazy. And then when you see Spock's father and Spock's mother, he's really just sort of commanding her, like, my wife, attend me, and Kirk's like, isn't this a little weird for a human woman to be doing? And she's like, well, it's the Vulcan way, Captain. It's a better way. It's logical. And so I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to explore that topic of this arranged marriage thing, where you have a Vulcan who doesn't really want to go along with all this, not just from the standpoint of the arranged marriage, but maybe the Vulcan doesn't want to be logical. Maybe she wants to find her own path and do something different and explore emotion. And so that's really where that character came from in a wider sense. And I thought, okay, it all comes together in a really neat story. This is about somebody fighting for their life. And I really enjoyed writing the story. I thought there would be some comical elements to it for sure, because I like to stay lighthearted and fun, and maybe I go a little too far sometimes. It is a little much in some places, but we had fun making it. Tyler Donovan, who plays one of the lead characters of Avalon Universe, decided he wanted to just come out and hang out while we were filming, and he got in makeup as a Vulcan and he had this beard, and I was like, dude, you look like Cybok. And then so I just credited him as Cybok in the credits, and it's like, you've got your lead character of your whole fan film thing, but he's just there playing a different character. Who cares? We're having a good time. That's the whole point. And I think the most amazing thing about Needs of the One is that it came from some really difficult times, some really hard times. But, again, going back to that speech from, Tony Gaskins, he says, greatness isn't what you become, it's what you overcome. And this was one of 2 or 3 times that I could have just let Avalon Universe burn to the ground. And I decided, I'm not going to let go of it. I'm going to do what I have to do. And I hired a new crew. I hired new actors, and we just started over in a way. And it was one of the most wonderful shoots we ever had. We shot it across 3 days.
Wow.
And we just had a wonderful time. Everybody who participated had a wonderful attitude. The film was photographed by my friend David Huff, who I work with on indie films all the time. The cast were superb. They just all had a great attitude. And the mood on the set, how everyone felt, how everyone was having a good time, is reflected in the film.
Mm-hmm.
You can see we're all having fun. And I think that that's the most wonderful part of it. Cora Wilson, who played T'Pren, in real life she owns a martial arts school with her husband, Brian. And if you ever met Brian Wilson, the guy is the literal incarnation of Chuck Norris. He's just cool, man. He's got the beard. He can kick butt just like Chuck Norris. And she was a honest to God cage fighter. And so what was really neat about that is that I could describe the progression of moves for her, and she knew what I was asking for. I could say, okay, butterfly sweep, Toreando pass, neon belly, full mount, punch to the face, turnover, full guard, triangle choke. I could go through the progression and she could just do it, because in another situation, she'd be teaching me how to do that because she's much more skilled than I would ever be. So it was neat to have someone who was a skilled actor and a skilled martial artist. I think that the most amazing part with the actors involved is that they all showed up not just knowing their lines, but they all had hard things to say, and they just went for it. You have parts where Alex says some really complicated monologues, and she just, you rolled camera and she just did it. Okay, we'll do another take, but you got it. It was the same with Cora. The first scene that Cora filmed was the scene where she Ponfars Commander Williams, and she goes through that whole speech where she's talking about, the issues that she has with Vulcan culture. She got it the first time. She knew it. And as she's walking on set, and I'm saying to her, this scene makes or breaks the whole movie. Like the first scene she's shooting, I'm like, this one scene makes or breaks the whole film. And no pressure, but she went in and she just nailed it. And I was so impressed with every member of that cast. I was so impressed with my friend David Huff, who came and worked so hard to film it. And it's a wonderful and memorable experience. It was a beautiful sunrise to a very dark night. And it has a special place in my heart.
That is excellent. I loved everything you said there. And Vance, V-Man, can we hear from you first on your thoughts and impressions?
Well, first off, when I was watching the movie, there was a real shock to me, because I'm watching the movie and I'm going, I like a lot of things about this movie. I like the Vulcan lady. Forgive me if I'm terrible with names, so I'm not going to refer to them by name. I like the Vulcan lady. I like the security guy. But then all of a sudden, I'm watching the movie, and all of a sudden, like, my face pops up. Like, I'm in this film. Holy shit, I'm in this film. I didn't realize wow. And I remember, like, a long time ago, I'd watched the film. Like, I forgot completely that I had seen this film. But Dan Reynolds had a birthday a couple weeks ago. And for those that don't know, Dan Reynolds is one of the owners of Warp 66 Studios. And I had seen his picture from this film, from his scene with the Allenby character. And I was like, man, I don't think I've seen this film. I want to watch this. So that's why I set this up for this show, so that we could review this, because I honestly, forgot that I'd seen it. So I was like, I want to watch it because, why not? And as I'm watching this, I'm like, man, I must have skipped a lot of this the first time I watched it, or watched it and tuned it out, maybe made dinner or something. I had this on in the background. But as I'm sitting there watching it, focused on it, I'm like, man, this is a great film. And then I pop up. I'm like, oh, man.
I'm in it.
I didn't even know that. So it was a shock to me. But I really loved the joy in the Vulcan. She was a pleasant character. I liked that. My favorite Vulcan is Tuvok because of, for lack of a better word, the humanity in the character's inflictions and his voice. He's not just the emotionless type Vulcan. There's a lot of passion in his voice for someone who's so passionless or emotionless. I love Tim Russ's portrayal of a Vulcan. No offense to Leonard Nimoy's fans, and I mean no disrespect to the legend himself, but I prefer Tim Russ. But I loved this Vulcan and what she brought to the table. I thought it was something a little different. And ironically enough, they had a little arc with Spock doing the same thing, exploring the emotion. And for those of us that know how CBS loves to pluck the fan film world, Josh, this one goes to you, buddy, for them plucking ideas. It seems you had a good one there, and CBS decided to use that one. But I tell you, my favorite character in this has to be the security guard, because it would be very easy for this type of story to tell a hubba hubba type story, or a soapbox type story of, well, it's not right for her to do that to him, and let me get on my agenda here. But I found him really a heartfelt character, of this is my friend, and of course I care for you as a person, as he's reaching out to her. And I like that a lot. I bought it as I felt the person come through behind the character. I felt like I knew him as a person, not just as a character, and I liked that a lot. And afterwards, when I talked to Josh, I said, "Yeah, that a lot of that was him, shining through." And I liked that a lot. I think when you can find someone that's genuinely positive like that, that's a good thing about these films. Is you find characters that are like, man, I want to know more about that. Your Captain Chicandes and your Captain Ramirez and your Captain whoever's, they're great, but I'd like to know more about that guy. Someone who's just your average Joe that's like, hey, my friend's obviously in trouble. What can I do to help you? I feel like at the end of the day, despite religion, despite politics, despite whatever, I feel like at the end of the day, all of us would be that type of person that whatever our personal differences, we'd all reach down and lift each other up out of the muck. And I loved seeing that here. It was a good story to me. I really couldn't find many flaws with it. And obviously, some people in fan films could, those that are obviously looking for a flaw. But for me, I couldn't. I went in wanting a good time, and I left a good time. So, and I know the behind the scenes stuff Josh is talking about, I couldn't see any of that in front of the camera for what he was talking about. So I think you set out to do the goal you did and make an entertaining film, Josh. I thought it was great.
Well, thank you. You bring up Wade King was the name of the actor that played Commander Williams. About the nicest guy you'll ever meet in your entire life. Really easy to get along with, really hardworking, a dedicated actor, also a martial artist. And his character was based on somebody who's really important to me, somebody who is deeply loved and valued by me. And that is my martial arts instructor. His name's Nathan Murdoch. And they call him No Mercy. He also was a cage fighter, and he was a beast, man. He could he could just take so many people out. I mean, and when people started talking about this guy, like, oh, this dude knocks people out and all of this, I was like afraid of him. I was like, man, do I want to meet this guy? And then I meet him, and he's the nicest. He's like just a teddy bear. He's like, hey, what's going on? You know, just this Zen quality to the man where he's absolutely in touch with his whole being, and he's kind, and he's thoughtful, and he's smart, and he's easygoing. Now, you put some gloves on, the switch gets thrown. Don't mess with him. But he was so easygoing, and so like that's kind of what I put a lot of that into this character. Where it's like, yeah, you know, just going with the flow. Like I think I just got married, you know. Like
I love that. He didn't quite have a clue.
I passed Vulcan in high school, but I think I just got married. Hey, let's go with it, you know. And man, Wade just had a way of exemplifying that, of taking it and run with it. Like, yeah, Vulcan yoga is awesome, you know. And I love that. I love what he did. So it's like, you know, you get the right people involved and great things happen.
The one thing I think that works about the Avalon Universe, and I think is an example of a fan film done right, is when your fan film character feels like your average person that just happens to be in the Star Trek universe, instead of, you know, trying to be an over-the-top, you know, caricature of a Kirk, a Spock, and McCoy, you know, when they just happen to be your average Joe that, I work in Starfleet and this is my job, you know, because I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of what Starfleet is. You know, when we watch TOS or we watch Next Gen, you know, those are the best of the best, the creme de la creme, you know. Not everybody is that, you know, those are the exceptions, not the case. And when I watched this film, you know, it was nice to be like, man, I could, you know, hell, I could be hanging out with this guy because he seems like your average Joe. I like that because it makes it more relatable when you watch something you can relate to. You know, it's a good time. You know, it's not someone that's perfect. It's someone that's he's flawed. He's got his moments, but you know, good cat. You know, I like the fact that you brought up the the kind of flaw in the Vulcan mentality with the property of females per se, you know, almost like a Ferengi, you know, where you know, females are property. You know, it's not really explored, and you know, it's often ignored. You know, we think of Vulcans as enlightened, but I mean they have kind of some shady practices. It's like, that's not too kosher, you know. But I like how you kind of draw attention to it, but you don't draw so much attention where it's like that's the focal point. It's like, no, it's here, but that's not the point of it. And I do like how she kind of steps out from that and says, I want to take my own path. You know, she's not disregarding her whole culture, but she's like, let me step out on my own and do my own thing. I enjoyed that a lot. I thought it was good for the character and expanding upon what we already know, instead of retreading old ground.
One criticism I get a lot in the comments is people like not really understanding what's happening, in the sense that they'll say, oh, she wins the fight and then she smiles. That's not very Vulcan. And I'm like, are you not paying attention? You know, she smiled because she could, because she realized in that moment she was free and she could be herself, and she had that release. And what I told her was, at the beginning, you're more reserved, you're more logical, and then as the film goes on, you start to open up and show more emotion, especially in that moment, because that's such a big victory for you. You're free, and then you haul it back just a little bit to be careful. But yeah, I mean,
one thing that people seem to forget about Vulcans. And they instantly think, oh, Vulcan with emotion, that's instantly a Romulan, and that's not the case. Vulcan, you know, Romulans went down a distinctively different path than Vulcans did, but choosing logic is a choice. You can choose not to. You can choose. It's just like Kolinahr. You choose to remove all emotion. You choose, like, they're all different choices, and I like the fact that you had her choose a different path. When she smiles, again, it's like anyone that's been, held captive per se, or stayed at a job too long that they weren't, and they finally walk away. They're like, fuck this, I quit, and they storm off, and they're, they breathe that sigh of relief. To me, that's how I took it. Was like, she's breathing that sigh of relief because she's no longer under the reins of being forced. She's making that choice. And people tend to forget the fact that, hey, logic is a choice. She's not disregarding her old ways. She's not throwing everything away, but it is her choice to do what are we doing? It's like when someone walks away from a religion, what do we keep? What do we choose to believe? And it's like that not every Vulcan is completely 100% conformed logic. How many times did Spock crack a slight joke or be sarcastic, and then he kind of has that bemused look on his face? To me, that just screams like, oh my God, how's he so sarcastic? How, the world is collapsing now. It's like there's several different degrees of how you can take it, that logic and sarcasm. It's like, who's to say for who what the right choice is? So to me, I completely saw what you were talking about. Again, what you're referring to is the nitpickers that you can't, the difference between being critical of something and being cynical of something, and you can't please those people, the ones who don't want to be pleased.
And then you get a lot of nonsense, like people bringing up the 1973 Franz Joseph technical manual and telling you got this and that detail of the spaceship wrong, and you're like, well, this is an alternate universe, so that doesn't even matter. I think the weirdest criticism I got was somebody was like, I read this book about Vulcans in 1971, and it said that Vulcan women aren't strong like the men, and I think that you should have tried to make it like this obscure book that I read. And I'm like, you're telling me that I have to align my fan fiction with some obscure book because you think I should? And I think I replied and I said something like, there have been like 800 Star Trek books written, man. I'm sorry, I haven't read them all. And somebody else was like, what an awful thing to come and say, like, you should align your fan fiction with somebody else's fan fiction. That's not how it works. And so you just get all kinds of people that will say bizarre things, but the film is generally well received. Like a lot of our films, it's got like a 98% positive rating, when you look in the analytics, and it's got, it's in the 40,000s view range. It's like 45,000 views, something like that. And so it's like, it's like talking about you're slowly building back. You had films the previous year that were only doing, we started out, we got like 200,000 with our first film. And then we were getting 100,000, and then we were getting 50, and it was kind of trailing off. And this was kind of a slow build back where it was, it did really well. And now the films we've released this year are getting better, getting more views, higher view counts than, they're passing films from 2 and 3 years ago. So people are responding pretty positively to what we're doing. And it's good to see kind of a recovery happening and seeing it all turn around.
The one thing that sorry, go ahead.
Well, I at first was kind of wondering if she was wearing a wig, and I even asked Big J that, is she wearing a wig? And so that was kind of a critical thing that I was looking at, and then I realized, I'm like, that is really cool how she kind of had this, more of that traditional Vulcan look. And after she won her fight, it's kind of like the caterpillar becoming the butterfly, that she was able to have her own expression and be accepted for herself. And really, she was able to kind of remove that facade that she had on kind of to hide herself into this new person. So I thought, wow, what a really good way to portray that and it wasn't something that was said, it was just kind of shown. So I really liked that, and I'm really amazed at how you said that, like, this cast was a brand new group and they just seem so cohesive together, and you know, the quality of the acting together and being able to be relatable characters to one another was great. And I think that whole idea of you know, she had this problem, and then there's a loophole that she can do to get out of it. And, you know, so I love that in a way that was such a serious topic, there was kind of this humor to that aspect as well. So yeah, I just really wanted to share that. I really appreciated, you know, there are a lot of women that this topic is today, real life for them every day. And I loved the fact that it was problematic that Command had said, you're going to turn her over, and they found a loophole for that part too. And then there was this new friendship, and she actually was able to be sponsored and accepted in to the Starfleet in the end. So it was someone who basically, she was fighting for herself, but she had a support group of this community that brought her in and held her up. So I love that message.
It's so Star Trek, isn't it? It's so Star Trek, you know, where somebody came from. And Vance mentioned something earlier that is something that happened with me in the past few years. And it's like somebody walks away from something traditional where you're forced to conform in a certain way, and you need to find who you really are. And that's what she was doing. Yeah. And the interesting story behind that was that we'd had another Vulcan character many films back, and this was a young lady who was a friend of mine, and we brought her in, and I didn't want to put her in one of the bowl cut wigs, and everybody was like, oh, why does she have long hair? And I got all these nasty comments about it, and I was like, why would I put this person in that? And then when we were about to film this, we were going back and forth on the wig thing, and Tyler was like, well, it looks more traditional. It looks more like a Vulcan. And I was like, okay, let's go with it. And I hated how it looked, but I was like, maybe that's something we can use. Maybe it can go from, she's got this appearance in the beginning that's just all wrong. That's not her. And then at the end, it's this coda where she's embracing who she is. And maybe that's a visual element of the story that's not in the script, and we just went with it. Now, a lot of people, again, didn't get it. It was the same thing where you just get comments where people are like, what? Why did her hair change? Why did she take off the wig? I don't understand. And it's like, you know, sometimes, I don't know. I think you're disrespecting your audience a little bit if you spoon feed stuff to them. I think that you have to do a little bit of throwing some stuff out there and let them do some thinking about it and some detective work a little bit and go, oh, okay. And so that's kind of what we did with this. And there was, I think we got a comment like 2 weeks ago that was in Spanish, and I like copied it, and then I went to translate, and it said, you know, why did she take off the wig? And then so like I wrote the answer, and then I translated the answer to Spanish, and I replied in Spanish. But it's like, you know, hey, people will either get it or not. You know, there's a thing we did in Ghost Ship where we had like the characters doing Arnold Schwarzenegger quotes while they were killing zombies. And people either like that or they hate it. I mean, there's no in between. People either think that's funny or they're like, yeah, I thought that was weird. You know, it is what it is. Sometimes I think sometimes when you make a choice as a filmmaker where it's like sharply down the middle, people don't like it or people love it. Maybe that's a bold choice. I don't know. It's not going to stop me from doing it.
Well, it's one of those things, man, where, you know, anytime you go to a movie, you're not going to have a movie that's going to please everyone 100%. You know, I personally, I like old Kevin Smith movies, not so much his new stuff. But like you go back, you watch Clerks, Mallrats, Dogma, Chasing Amy, Jane Silent Bob Strike Back. Like you go to them and it's like, man, they're all, I think, funny movies, but any one of those jokes, like, you may find a couple of people laugh at this one, a couple of people laugh at that one, a couple of people laugh at this one, and it's like that's one of the things, like, any good movie, there's going to be references to something or something that's done that, not everyone's going to pick up on it, and that's okay. Those that do get it. Those that don't, that's fine. Maybe that's not your thing, or, you don't have to get it. It's fine. But, that's going back to something you said earlier about the 1971 Vulcan book, and people saying, why didn't you write about this reference? It was in there. I've always found, because you and I have been around the block in fan films, and we've kind of tipped our toes in quite a few of them, and I tend to stay very vague on things, whether it's star dates or who's on what and doing what. It's like I tend to stay very vague. I tend to just be like, hey, let's have a conversation on what ship are we on, and let's go there, and let's stick more to the conversation, what we're talking about, rather than the specifics of what is in the outside world. All this doesn't matter. You and I matter because we're talking. And I feel like films are the same way. What is important is your specific story, not everything else outside of it. And I feel like even if it changes from film to film, that's okay, because as long as it doesn't get in the way of telling a good story. And I feel like a lot of people get hung up on the specifics, the micromanaging per se of what needs to go. They never actually get a story told. There's a lot of great ideas out there, but they never get it fucking made because they're so worried about, oh, you can't break this continuity because this star date and this star date and this ship and this, how this star system is with this and how it's aligned with it. Man, just tell a story. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, who cares about all that? If you can tell your story, man, you're ahead of the game, and you're 99% ahead of everyone else doing it. Not saying you're better, but at least you're getting it done. And that to me is like, you told a great story about in my opinion, you told a great story about a victim who was trying her best to overcome something, and she did it. And to me, it's like, that's a relatable story. The fact that she was a Vulcan, it doesn't matter. So it's fine,
And I wanted to tell that story in a different way, because people explore victimhood a lot these days, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's an eye roll way to do it, and there's a
subtle,
an uplifting way to do that. Mm-hmm. And especially with the fight scene, what I felt was important is, okay, like, you see fight scenes where a woman fights bigger men and she just clobbers them or whatever. There's all kinds of really highly choreographed martial arts moves, and a villain is defeated. And this is something that I did in the past. And knowing and understanding martial arts, you have two types of techniques. You have high percentage techniques and you have low percentage techniques. A high percentage technique is a technique that is easy to perform. So like you're talking like a jab cross, 1, 2, that's a high percentage technique. It's really easy to pull off and is very effective, but it's also very easy to defend. Whereas a low percentage technique is going to be like a spinning hook kick, where it's like really hard to pull off and you might slip and bust your ass. But if you do it with exactly the right timing, you're going to nail someone in the head with it. And watching fights on TV and movies, like 99% of what you're watching people do are high percentage techniques that would never land. It's too complex. Fighting is real barbaric in a way. And so what I wanted to show in this fight, and look, it's make-believe. There are no spaceships. Okay, we get it. But at the same time, what I wanted to present was a realistic fight scene in which a smaller female opponent could defeat a stronger male adversary in a realistic way. So if you watch this fight scene, what it looks like is if you were watching like a UFC fight where people stalk each other and then there's move and counter move and it's like a chess match. And the progression of moves she goes through is a realistic series that you would learn in a martial arts school to defend yourself. You know, she finishes him off with a triangle choke that she baits him into, where she goes for an arm bar. He kind of moves into the right position, and then she chokes him. Look, I've been triangle choked by women. You know, I've tapped out from it. It sucks. And so it's like I wanted to show something in that instance that was a little bit more real, that was a little bit more believable. And I feel like we accomplished that. Is it, you know, a spectacle? No, it's not. But it wasn't meant to be a spectacle. It wasn't meant to be the Matrix. It was meant to be what it is.
I can just hear the outcry of the Trek beards, like, well, a woman can't beat a man.
I liked that she also, you're questioning whether she is actually going to win, that she was also struggling at certain points. So it is realistic. You know, she is definitely not just, you know, gonna beat him up and he's done right away. So I love the sequence where, you know, there is kind of that back and forth movement and you're unsure, and she's, you know, like leading him into her winning.
Well, a hero or a shero, you know, they're made by the challenge that they overcome, by the opponent that they defeat. And if the opponent isn't very challenging, then the victory doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we had to show this was a guy who could really hurt her. And in the end, she actually won the battle by just embarrassing him more than anything else. She didn't kill him.
Yeah.
Technically, she was supposed to kill him. He just was embarrassed and went, okay, I'm done with you. You humiliated me in front of my boys, and now I'm walking out.
And that's the general idea of, like, a lot of men is, you know, no woman can ever beat me. So that was great, you know, kind of a standard stereotype, but the way you did it was very, there was a little bit of humor as he was, you know, leaving and, you know, spitting and like kind of that, over the top. And so, yeah, I love that.
Every guy has that thought that, you know, I could go a couple rounds with Ronda Rousey. I could, because, yeah, you know, I could. We all think, and I think that's a failing for guys, is that we just assume, well, if we're fighting someone of the opposite sex, we're going to win because they're not as strong, they're not as fast, yada, yada, yada. And I tell you what, okay, take your ass, put it in a cage with someone like that, and you're going to get worked over. It's going to be pitiful.
Oh yeah, I've absolutely had the floor mopped with me by women. You know, it's a thing. Ronda Rousey was trained by a guy named Judo Gene LaBelle. Her origin is in judo, and Judo Gene LaBelle, there's an infamous story, look it up. He made Steven Seagal poop in his pants. He got Steven Seagal in a chokehold, and he passed out and pooped himself.
Oh my god.
Oh man.
So yeah.
Wow.
You know, he was one of the guys that trained Bruce Lee on how to properly be a stuntman in Hollywood. You know, so it's an interesting pedigree there. But yeah, you know, there was a fight scene that we did in another film early on, which we did the opposite, where it was, you know, a small female heroic character fighting this big Klingon, and it's this really intricate fight where there's knives and ducking and all of this stuff, and she defeats him. And I have gotten so many comments over the past 5 years of, that is, nobody believes that, this is ridiculous. And somebody even like last week was like, the only reason you did this was to show how tough this female character was. And I replied and I said, I can't fight you on this. It's 100% what happened. You know, the actress wanted to do that. She wanted to do a scene like that. We did it. But in the year and a half that this film has been out, nobody has ever once in the comment section of the film questioned the realism of the fight that happened at the end.
Well, speaking of having to overcome something, there's another story in this film that's I feel is kind of overlooked because of how much of the forefront the Vulcan storyline is, and that's the Allenby story. That is, I mean, it's just as vital, and it's very much paralleled to the Vulcan story. She's having to overcome, and this is 2 or 3 days into her joining the ship. She's having to take basically the night shift, the Harry Kim night shift, all this shit's kind of falling apart on her shift, and she's like, man, where's the escape pod? Let me just walk out the airlock, and it's to me, I feel like it goes hand in hand with the Vulcan storyline of two people that are kind of in over their heads, and they kind of overcome it, not together but simultaneously. And I love how you blend those storylines together. It makes you love both characters, and I like how she looks at this and she's like, this is jacked up. I don't want to support this. What can we do to help her out? I like that because you've already introduced the characters one movie earlier, but this, you get a better introduction into who she is as a person, as opposed to her helping someone else. She's yet again doing it, but you get a better insight into her as a person. I like that storyline too, but again, I feel like it is kind of brushed off to the side because of all the action stuff, but it has just as much heart there as the Vulcan storyline.
I think. Sorry.
No, go ahead. No, I've been blabbering a lot, so.
No, that's okay. I was just going to make kind of the same comment, is that for a half-hour fan film production, you had an A plot and a B plot that you're able to squeeze in there and get done. You don't see that a whole lot in fan films. And I thought, that was, usually it's just the one thing you kind of focus on, but that's another thing I think you pulled off pretty well. And the other part of it that I liked is that it's not your standard captain, first officer, chief medical officer story. You actually are dealing with a character who's the security chief, nurse, commander who's a first officer. You've got the navigator. So it had more of a variety in regards to, it wasn't that standard formula of like your top 2 or 3 roles on the ship that's getting all the spotlight. So not only did you have an A and a B plot, but you did it with the characters that were the positions and ranks you usually don't see have that much attention, at least not in the TOS days, of course. But you'd get that in TNG, DS9, Voyager, sure. But you had less time to do that and still got 2 stories in at the same time.
I was going to say, I loved the fact that you show somebody who's really questioning and having a lack of confidence at the beginning. And she's kind of like complaining to her dad, like, I'm not ready, or I don't think I'm ready. And when she's presented with the Vulcan issue, she thinks on her feet super fast and invites, the would-be husband over. And I thought, wow, you really see her take the reins. And that's kind of the moment where we realize, she's become from the caterpillar to the butterfly, where she's now seeing her dad, and her dad's like showing her approval, and she's gained that value of confidence. So I thought that was a really nice way to show her metamorphosis there, with that second storyline that, was ultimately there as well.
And one thing that I'm sorry, go ahead, Josh.
Well, the character of Allenby is, she's named for my 13-year-old daughter.
Oh, okay.
And so her, and my 13-year-old daughter is a very strong-willed individual, to be sure, and I love that about her. And I think in some ways I've made her my hero here. To a degree, because it's like, you make choices in life about who and what you want to be, and whether you're going to let life get the best of you. And That's really her story, and that story is going to continue. It's funny because since we released that film, we have shot the entirety of that character's arc. We have shot all the way to the end of her arc, because we've shot several films past that now, and I'm working on one of them right now, and she's in the next film. The story is about her discovering who she really is, or choosing who she wants to be in life, and seeing in Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs the different ways her life could have gone. And then making the choice that I am going to be true to myself. And then that leads her in the Once and Future Captain to make really important decisions about how to deal with what's going on. And so it's an important story arc. And I think that, they give us enough time in these fan films. It's a fun challenge to play with a novella 30-minute format, and that really tests your storytelling skills. And yeah, I wanted to have an A and a B plot, and I wanted it to feel like a Star Trek episode. And I think that one thing that really does make it feel like a Star Trek episode is Adam Mullen's musical score. I think that in every film that we've done that he's scored, he's really elevated the quality of the film. And he in a way, makes the whole movie by keeping this bright, beautiful score going that is so Star Trek. And you're just watching there at the beginning, and you're hearing those tones, and it looks and it sounds and it feels like a Star Trek episode. And so I'm really grateful to Adam for that. He's messaging me right now. He's working on the score for Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs while we're talking. So it's fun, man. Fan films are, it's an opportunity for you to have a part of the universe that you love and live part of the adventure.
We should probably have him when we do our little thing with Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs, which I think that would be, put that idea in his head. I think that would be
I will talk to him.
A fun thing, because you're right. The music really put me in a TOS episode. It really felt like I was there without it being a copy off of any of that music. So what he did, that was all original.
Yeah, that was wow. An original score. Yeah.
Yeah, that is unbelievable. He did really good on that.
The one thing going back to what you were talking about with going to like the navigator, the doctor, the different characters, each one of them felt like they were fully fleshed out, like you had the backstory already, like they had been, 10 episodes already filmed, like they had been part of a crew. And I don't know how much of that is credit to the actors themselves or the director behind the camera. But I have to say that it was a real joy to watch the film and it not feel like a fan production. And I mean that with no disrespect to anyone that does fan productions. As me, I've made some clunkers myself. So I,
that's how you learn.
But this felt like people who lived and breathed those characters and knew exactly who they were as those characters. Like the helmsman, she felt fully as that character. The engineer, the security officer, that instant connection. And I really loved everything they brought to the table. You really,
I definitely credit the actors for that. I mean, I really do, because we got some fun going on in the background. Definitely credit the actors for that, because like you mentioned Jessica, who played the second officer / helmsman. I felt like she really stole the show in the scenes that she was in, because like that part where I basically just said to her, Andorians hate Vulcans. They just hate them. It's and you have to show me that. And she was just like, those Vulcans, and just did a wonderful job of it. And it's like the polar opposite of how she is in real life. Jessica's like the sweetest person you could ever know in real life. So
it's never an odd time when you see V-Man's background with getting video bombed. I love it. The last guy might be the same guy, made it look like something from The Ring. Was that it? All the long hair?
It's the same guy. It's the same guy.
I love
it. When you talked about fan films, here's the thing. I feel like that, and I like what you call the show Critical, Not Cynical, because so many people, I feel like, try to pick things apart instead of just going into something, knowing what it is and trying to enjoy it for what it is. Yeah. When I watch a fan film, I keep in mind that's what it is. Mm-hmm. And I just try to get into the story and enjoy it for what it is. And look, there are a lot of great fan film producers out there that are making wonderful content right now. We're in this unprecedented era where there is so much like peace between the different fan film series that are going, where we're all working together, we're all helping each other, we're having cameos in each other's films or working behind the scenes to help each other out. That's rare in film. That's very rare in film.
That's very
film
cool.
Is very competitive. And so to see groups of people working together to help each other, this is not normal. It's a very beautiful, wonderful thing that's happening, and I hope it continues. Mm-hmm. And look, I want to be clear that when I talk about mistakes that I made earlier on in doing this, I'm not trying to slight anyone else that was participating. I'm not. It didn't work out with some actors. It didn't work out with some people that worked on the project. That's a thing that happens. Bands break up. Stuff happens. People sometimes have different visions for things creatively. And because people come from different perspectives, there is a lot of opportunity in creative endeavors for conflict and for disagreement. I feel like I made a lot of mistakes throughout the course of doing this, of doing Avalon Universe. And again, we talked about this last time I was on your show, Jefferson, that's a tapestry. Mm-hmm. And there's a value to making those mistakes because, again, like going back to martial arts, the thing you want is you want to lose so that you can understand how to grow. Mm-hmm. And if there's been one thing in Avalon Universe, it's been the opportunity for a lot of growth. And you have to be able to admit to yourself, I made a mistake or I did something wrong and I need to grow from that. And there are ways that I had to really look at myself in the mirror before we made this film and go, how am I doing this wrong? And how do I need to adjust my approach in order to be a better filmmaker? And I had to change my approach to how I cast the film. And I had to change my approach to how I made the film. And, right now with Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs, we were going to release it on Halloween. And that's an important day for me because that's the anniversary of the first release we have ever had, Ghost Ship. It premiered on Halloween. It was this really neat thing. And the date was important to me. But we started looking at the film and watching it and realizing, you know what? This has the potential to be a really unique fan film. And right now it's, to quote my friend Jonathan Lane, it's a 7.5 and it could be a 10. It could be better. and maybe if we just put another month in on some little very correctable things, if we put a little bit more time on the airbrush, maybe it'll be a way better film. And I had to just, pull my finger off the trigger and do what was best for my movie. And it was hard, but we did it. And I feel like that the film we could have put out versus the film that we will put out, there's going to be a difference in the quality of it.
Well, having watched it, an early copy, I can tell the fans, you guys are in for a treat, because it is one of the best ones out there. So you guys are in for something pretty special. And I don't say that to kiss your ass, but it is pretty good. It's what, like 40 some minutes, 45 minutes or so, give or take.
Yeah, it's like 45 minutes long.
Yeah, and it's a quick. I watched it several times, and it goes by so quick. So many storylines overlap everything, and without going into any details, it is a very quick 45 minutes. Even doing other things and having it as background several times into the film, I'll find myself stop doing what I'm doing and focusing on the screen and losing track of the other things that I'm doing. I mean, that's how good of a film it is. And I don't do that. I may be a one and done type guy for a fan film, and then maybe background noise later. I've watched the film, even in its rough draft capacity, several times, just to be like, man, there's so much eye candy on that screen, on top of a good story. So, I mean, even in the rough draft form, it's a great film. So you guys watching are in for a treat.
Well, it's the direct sequel to this film. The events in Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs directly follow the events of Needs of the One.
Oh, okay, nice.
So
can't wait to see that.
So they, throughout the Needs of the One, they're like, we got to get to this star system to figure out what's going on. And this, at the very beginning of it, it's like they arrive in that star system to start investigating the mystery. And it's like, wow, it only took us 2 years to get here. But
better late than never.
Sort of a, you go back to Agent of New Worlds. I don't know if you've seen that one, but Agent of New Worlds is sort of the start of that story. Now, of course, Commander Allenby is played by a different actress in that film. But that is the start of the Commander Allenby story, where she crash lands on a desert planet trying to rescue her friend. They're rescued by the Excalibur, and then Needs of the One is like 2 or 3 days later, and then Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs is like 2 days after that. So it all just kind of directly correlates as far as a storyline goes. And then we have another storyline going on with our classic Avalon Universe characters, Captain Derek Mason and Jamie Archer, who have been with us since Ghost Ship. They were killed off, supposedly, in an episode, in some episodes early on. They returned, and took up the mantle of a new storyline that started in our film Cosmic Stream. And then at the end of Agent of New Worlds, there's like a post-credits scene that picks up on that story a little bit. But then what we were going to do is we were going to do like a parallel hero's journey, where you would watch a story about Commander Allenby and the Excalibur for 30 minutes. And then after that, you'd watch a post-credit scene that was maybe 5 minutes long about Captain Mason and Jamie Archer. And we just decided, instead of doing that, let's just give them their own film. And so we took like about 3 post-credit scenes and put them together and created a film we released in July called Knights of the Void. And that just kind of is the continuation of their story. And then finally next year, there's going to be a film called The Once and Future Captain, where the Excalibur crew and Commander Allenby meet up in their hero's journey with Captain Mason and Jamie Archer, and they all work together to save the day. So it's a fun like story to build. And, you can go to the Avalon Universe YouTube channel. Since there's so many fan films on that, the best recommendation I can give to you is there's a playlist that's just Avalon Universe. Just hit the playlist and watch the films, and it'll walk you through all of them. My original vision for Avalon Universe was I was only going to make 4 films. We started in 2018 with Ghost Ship, and by the time we were on set filming Ghost Ship, I had the vision for all 4 films. Somehow that became like 15. And we've taken some twists and turns along the way, that's for sure. But I wouldn't change it for anything, because it's helped me become the person and the filmmaker that I need to be. And so I'm grateful for all of the ups and downs.
And we're very much looking forward to all of it. We hope you keep doing these, because this is the first one I'd seen, and I want to go back and watch the others. I've got so much homework to do on fan films. It's ridiculous. It's crazy, because I'm going to be talking to Sam on Monday, and he gave me several to watch and look at, and it's like, I want to watch all of these, and this is great. I didn't realize, and I've told Vance this whole world of fan films is a lot larger than I thought. And it's amazing that there are so many, and that there are so many different, like, how do I want to word it? Productions. You've got Dreadnought Dominion, Avalon Universe, and I know I'm forgetting
like the Federation Files.
Yeah, Federation Files. That's what I was trying to think of. And so
I'll tell you, a couple weeks ago, I marathoned the Avalon Universe, because I knew I was missing a few, and I was like, well, screw it, I'll just go back. I'll watch all of them, so I know exactly what is going on, because I was getting excited for Crisis, and I just watched the early release of Crisis, the rough draft that Josh had sent, and I was like, well, I'm on an Avalon kick, I'll do it. And it was, I think the whole playlist was like 5.5 hours, give or take. And I tell you, even that, it was like 5 hours. Like, it was like, man, it was great. I mean, if you have a Saturday afternoon or something, you're like, man, it's rainy outside, I don't want to go anywhere. Let me grab a blanket, grab some popcorn, just maybe a Little Caesars pizza. Quick nod to Josh for all of our Little Caesars pizza we get on set. That's our lifeblood on set together, man. It's a quick watch, all of those, and I tell you, it's you start looking at the universe of the Avalon Universe as its own thing, kind of like the JJ universe. It's more than just it's its own branch, or it's its own. Like, you start looking at it, going, man, this is great. Like, this is a whole sandbox you can play with. You start thinking of the possibilities, and you're just like, man, what would a next generation Avalon Universe film be? Or what would this happen? What would this? You just start thinking of the possibilities, and it's great, man. It's a great universe to watch. So
you worded that very well.
Every one of those films is special to me. Every one of those films matters to me. Every one of those films in its own way is a wonderful memory. And the thing is the story of Avalon Universe is that it's because of Vance. And I've told this story a lot, but we owe it to him. He is the person who inspired it. He really is, because
I believe it.
Look, I started writing Star Trek fan fiction when I was 12 years old. And I wanted to make Star Trek fan films when I was 12 years old. And I was like, hey, let's go take this VHS camera. Oh, wow, that didn't turn out very well. And I got bit by the film bug. And, I started doing a lot of indie film. I have 2 movies on Tubi. I have a film that's about to come out in 1,000 theaters that I worked on.
Wow.
But it's like, I for so long would see a Star Trek New Voyages or a Star Trek Continues and think, man, I I wish I could be part of this. And for some reason, I always thought like that I would never do it very well, that I would just embarrass myself, that I'd reach out and say, hey, I want to work on, your fan films. People would laugh at me. I just didn't think I would do it justice. And, and then you see things like Prelude to Axanar come out in 2014, and you're like, wow, man, people are really doing some stuff, and Renegades and Star Trek Continues, and wow, this stuff is so cool. And you more and more think you're just a nobody, and you could never accomplish anything. And I got to tell you something. There was a Facebook group that was started when the guidelines happened, called Project Small Access, and it was a support group for, hey, let's keep fan films going. And that Project Small Access eventually had its name changed to Fan Film Forum. And I didn't notice it at first, but then I'm seeing this Fan Film Forum, and every day I'm seeing this fat guy post in there. And he's making a fan film, and I'm like, well, what is this? And I clicked on it, and I'm watching this, and I'm going, this guy's in his backyard. He's shooting it with his phone, but I couldn't not click on it, and I kept watching. I'm like, and I had this realization. I was like, this guy has more courage than me. He doesn't care. He's not sitting there trying to think about his ego. He loves Star Trek, and by God, he was going to go tell his story. And he didn't care if Little Caesar's Pizza was in the background. And I was just like, this is a really beautiful thing. It's a really beautiful thing. And I think that I just started commenting like, man, this is great. Congratulations. Keep it up. And then he friend requests me, and then we're talking on Messenger, and then he's calling me. And he was the person who said, you need to make a Star Trek fan film. You just need to do it. And I was kind of like all over the place, and my two friends at the time we all wanted to do a film project together, and we were going through these different dramas trying to figure out what we're going to do. And Vance was like, no, you need to just do the Star Trek fan film. And he set it up. He was the one who called Ray Tessie and put me in contact with him and said, you should go down there and do this. And even from a creative standpoint, I was watching him. He would post like Kelvin Menard meets, Prime Menard meets, the Phantom Mirror Minard. And I just made this comment like, oh, they're going to get together and have the Transdimensional Council of Menard as a joke. And then that was really the moment that was the inspiration for the concept of Avalon Universe. That was it right there, that moment. And in Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs, we will have the Transdimensional Council of Menard.
Yep. I tell you, one of the best things was I love hearing Josh's impression of when I'm doing a fundraiser. Like everyone else does it like super duper serious, but I tried my hand at that, and I'm like, it's not really for me. But Josh, do your impression of me doing the fundraiser, because you do it so well.
Okay, so all right, so I had done my video in that regard, and this is in 2021, where I'm like, all right, give us, with your help, we can do this, and this year we're going to make these fan films. And I set up, and I did this really complicated light setup with my camera, and I did like 20 takes, and I spent like a whole day editing it, and it was like really polished, and I was like, great. And then Vance does this, right? He does his version, and I'm like, okay. And I click on it, and he's like, again, he's in his backyard, and he's just got his phone in his hand, right? He's just like, hey guys, I'm out walking my dog, and I just figured I'd bring you up to speed on what we're doing this year on the Constar if you want to help us out. Neelix! Come back, son! Come back! Anyway, so we're going to do some brand new Neelix! No, don't go past the tree, son. We're gonna do some great stories with the Neelix. He's talking about like the fan films he's gonna do and why you should donate, and he's yelling at his dog. And I questioned everything. I was like, maybe this is, no one's going to remember what I did. You know what I mean? You're going to remember this.
Shit, I love it. See, this is why I love Josh, man. Like, I can always sit back and talk, shoot the shit with him. It is like this is why Josh is a great filmmaker, because not only does he have the technical know-how, but he knows how to take a joke. He knows how to make light of the situation. Like, he's a real person, like he's so approachable. He's so fun. And man, I tell you, the best time I ever had in fan films, bar none, was when we were at Star Trek Las Vegas 55. And, I'd been doing fan films for 9 years, I think it was. And we're both behind that giant screen thingy-mabob. That's how technical I know things, like thingy-mabob. That's how I describe it. But like it's me and my boy, it's me and Josh, and we're there. And I remember there's a selfie, and we're both wearing like the COVID masks, and we're both like, but we're taking a selfie in the dark. But I'm like, dude, we got to take a picture. Remember this moment, because it's like it's me and my boy. This is the highest stage that I can think of, and it's me and my boy, And it's like I love that dude so much. He's so cool, because he always, like, every interview he's always like, Vance inspired this universe, and it's like, dude, I'm just a guy with the phone. Like, you have done something that is so much bigger, better. Like, I don't deserve that credit, but he's always giving credit to other people. He is such a humble spirit. He has no ego, and that's what it's all about. That's what making fan films, having fun with your friends, ordering the cheapest pizza you can and having fun on set and just having a good time. It doesn't matter if uniforms are a little too big or they don't fit quite right, or you're wearing a t-shirt, sneakers, whatever, just having a good time, and that's Josh. Although he brings his A game, he knows when to step back and be like, let's laugh. Let's get the important stuff down, but let's have a joke, and I love that dude. He's such a good guy.
And you really brought your A game on this one.
That's what fan films are supposed to be about. They're supposed to be about friendship. Look, there was a time when all of us Star Trek fans were the person getting made fun of at the lunch table.
Yeah.
That was all of us once. We were all getting made fun of because we were more into Star Trek than we were basketball or whatever else.
I really
everything else.
Yeah, I really was not an open Star Trek fan that much in school, but it got to a point where I kind of, as a Star Trek fan, came out of the closet. I embraced being a fan, and for people to know it, because it seems silly. Like, wait a minute, why am I like acting like this is something I don't want anyone to know about?
I went into the closet, like I was very much an out Trekkie when I was in elementary school. And then when I became a teenager, I sort of just hid it, and tried to be more approachable and mainstream and all of that kind of stuff. And it was just stupid. You're not being who you are. And the fact is that this is an experience so many of us can relate to. We should be here for each other. We should be here trying to unite over what brings us together, not what separates us. We all need this support group. We all need this, we get into fan films to make us happy, not to get angry, not to fight with anyone. We do this. And the way that I view Star Trek fan films is that I was going through a hard time in my life, and I made a Star Trek fan film, and it brought me an immense amount of happiness. Mm-hmm. And I look at other people that want to do this and I think they should have that too. They should have that too. And so I try when I can to help out with that or to be supportive of that. And Vance and I, we've been through a lot. And when we got to Star Trek Las Vegas, and it took some effort for both of us to get there, it was so wonderful to just be with it. I've only met Vance in person 3 times. And so that was the second time that I had seen him in person. And at that point in time, I hadn't seen him in person in 2 years. And so we spent like 3 days together hanging out, and it was so cool. And he talks about that moment. It's special for a lot of reasons. Rod Roddenberry watched a fan film. Rod Roddenberry watched Cosmic Stream. Wow, who can say that? That's amazing. But because they were playing our films at Star Trek Las Vegas, and I told Vance, I said,
"That's really
you
cool.
got to understand. This is a stage where they're interviewing Frakes, where they're interviewing Denise Crosby or Mike Okuda or people, real Star Trek people, and they're interviewing you on that same stage. That means that you have your own corner of the Star Trek universe that has made it, and people have seen it, and they can never take that away from you. Your character is just as relevant and matters just as much as Captain Kirk or Captain Picard. It matters to you.
I really love that, you've expanded not only the universe characters and all that, but by you making your films, you've expanded the universe for all of the fans. So, you talk about making something that makes you happy. This is definitely something that, for some of us who just have an appreciation and love the whole fandom, we have another avenue to go down of watching something that, we can see qualities there, storylines are there, and it brings us that extra realm in there as well. So, we appreciate that from this perspective.
Well, thank you. Let me tell you real quick what my favorite moment was at STLV that year. So Vance and I make a lot of jokes about Harry Kim, how he's forever an ensign. And of course, Garrett Wang was at this convention, and we're just like walking down the hallway, and Garrett Wang just comes flying past us, like
Wang.
Running.
Sorry to correct, is Wang. Garrett Wang.
A Wang. He runs past us, and I just shouted, "He's running for that promotion!" And he's just like, "You," and keeps going.
And we also have the picture of that selfie with him in the background. Like it was,
yeah.
I was so disappointed. Dude, we did. If we were ever going to get kicked out, it was going to be because of that. I was so disappointed. The only picture I didn't get was like he's leaving, and I'm like, "Can I get a picture with you?" He's like, "Yeah." And I'm desperately searching. I'm looking around like, "Where's Josh?" If I could have been like Mechaneck, like with my neck extended, looking around for Josh, I would have so grabbed him. Like I would. And that's the only picture I really wish I could have gotten was me, Josh, and him, because like we're always talking about Ensign Kim. I mean, hell, we even put that in our film where 32nd century, there's Menard on his bridge and he's like Ensign Kim. I mean, we're always making, and I only put that in my film because I wanted to make Josh laugh. We're always making jokes about Ensign Kim. And I mean, to have Garrett there, there, it's like, oh, this is perfect, but yeah.
Now we are going to do a little film. One thing that's planned that's maybe like a minute or so long with David Chang, where he's going to be Harry Kim, and we're going to make a little film called Harry Kim's Bad Dream. So that's something that's coming.
So everyone, stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned.
Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs. Thank you, Josh, for taking the time to sit with us. And you like Josh or Joshua? I always feel like I should.
It doesn't matter. It's either way is fine.
Okay, all right.
But thank you, Jefferson, for having me and taking the time to appreciate what we created. It does really mean a lot. your show's great, man. I'm really impressed, and I cannot wait to see you as Captain Sisko in a fan film. I'm real excited about that.
That's what
I may
I'm
have
hoping.
to make you Captain Sisko in one of my films someday.
That's what I'm hoping for. Now, because it's No Shave November, I don't look like Cisco right now, letting the beard grow out. And I see that look you're giving me. I saw that. Because I see you right there on the screen. Oh my God, really? So, but yes, I can whip myself right into a Captain Sisko look pretty quickly, and I would love to do that. And that is,
let's do it, man.
Absolutely. And I've even got, I think I told you this, Vance, but I ordered some stuff, got some new, not so much official uniforms, but like what I'm wearing now, some pseudo uniforms ish, because I have.
Well, now that I know you're doing the Cisco, like once we get a script locked and we know, like, I can send you some links for some affordable uniforms, because it's very easy to outspend yourself. And I would never want to make you buy something that you're just like, well, why did I buy it? Because I have I have probably close to 100 uniforms in my closet.
Ooh,
wow. A lot of them. Dude, you can ask Josh. It's huge. And realistically, I mean, it took a couple of years to get there. And I don't want you to overspend on something you don't need to. But once we get something locked, dude, we got you hooked up on links to affordable and something that fits nicely, as opposed to, oh man, this is something you'd wear on Halloween. So I don't, because and as a large guy, I don't like stuff that doesn't fit me properly. So we'll make it work for you, man.
You're going to be my resource, because we're two big guys, and so we need uniforms with a little extra fabric to it. So yeah.
Yep, I got you, man. I got you.
Thank you guys so much, and wish Frank could have joined us. He was not able to make it for this one, but hopefully he will be on with us on the next one. Glad to have you here, Nico and Vance and Joshua. Really appreciate it. And if you haven't already, look up on YouTube, Avalon Universe, watch all these other films, and keep your eyes and ears open for Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs.
It won't be long, just a couple of weeks.
All right, great. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you guys, have a good night and live long and prosper. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can support us at patreon.com/BeyondTrek.
We are Beyond Trek Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your years. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.